All right, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Brawley City Council and successor agency, the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency. Regular meeting for March 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. here at the City Council chambers. We can have the roll call, please.
Yes, the minutes will reflect that all the council members are present.
Thank you. And our invocation by Councilmember Hamby.
Let's all stand if you can. Let's bow our heads and pray. Almighty God, our gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful to you today for your many blessings that you pour out on us each day. We're thankful for this city and for the people that make up this city, for our city employees, our safety services, our residents. And we ask that you would just continue to watch over our city, keep us safe, heal those that are sick, comfort those that are experiencing loss, and watch over our proceedings this evening. Help us and guide us with your wisdom. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Brother Maris, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir.
Hallelujah. Play ball.
By the way, Japan's going to win today.
All right.
I think they did, didn't they?
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Palawanis. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to
I'll
approve.
second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public appearances and comments not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name for the record. You're not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment on any item not appearing on the City Council agenda? Please.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Cordero from the Department of Toxic Substance Control and Maya Kula from our public participation branch. We're here to invite the City Council, the Mayor, City of Brawley, to an open house that we're having tomorrow night at Oakley Elementary from 6 to 8 p.m. It's to talk about the upcoming work that's going to be started out at the Pure Grove Brawley site, former Pure Grove Brawley site, out on Cesar Chavez and River Road. There will be stations there, people to talk to, interpretation, everything in Spanish and English. We'd like to leave a copy of what's going to be presented tomorrow evening, and that's about it.
We have seen the invitation. We appreciate the information, and we're certainly there to attend. I do have a Imperial County Transportation Commission meeting, so if I'm not there, please excuse me, but a member of council will be there in attendance, and we'll make sure we have our staff there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there any other public comment on any item not appearing on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. Next is the presentation of proclamation and recognition of autism awareness presented by Gloria Brambila, mother and volunteer advocate. Want to come on up?
Good evening, Mayor Nava and Brawley City Council. Thank you for having us this evening. I am Gloria Brambila. I'm a mother and a volunteer advocate for not just our autism community, but just basically anybody that needs a voice. And I'm a little more nervous tonight than other nights because I do have our babies with us.
Don't be nervous.
And I think that's what it's all about. I don't represent a nonprofit organization. I don't have one yet, but I do help out as much as I can in as many organizations that are here that support our children. And I'm grateful that there are several, and there will be several upcoming events that are being posted, in different areas for the different organizations that support autism. And because that is a month coming up in April. And it's not just one day, it is a whole month, because that is how big the impact is on our lives. It's not just one child. I mean, I think it's probably a child in everybody's families now that you may know of. The numbers are only growing, and we are here to continue to thank you and ask for the support, the continued support in this acceptance and awareness. And, you know, it's about bringing inclusion. What I do, I didn't know how to coach baseball, but I had to learn, you know, if I wanted my child to be included and I couldn't travel to other cities, you know, I had to bring that to Westmoreland. And, you know, thankfully now we have an all-inclusive league of all needs in Westmoreland. It's just, our league is just, you know, all-inclusive. Any child can participate, and we do have our parents that support our children. We all do this voluntarily, you know, voluntarily. Anybody here, any moms that would like to? And we do have our therapists. I don't think we would survive without our ABA therapists, applied behavioral analysis. As you know, come on in. As you know, or I don't know if you know, but autism, some of our children are nonverbal or primarily nonverbal like mine, and behaviors can occur. So that is when our therapists come in to help us with those behaviors so that they can be modified and our children can be integrated in, you know, everybody's daily life, because it is their, you know, world too. And I'm just really nervous. I think I just want to thank you.
You always do a great job. And
you know, I've been doing this for years.
You
and
have
I
been.
think I don't know, every time it feels like this, the first time I speak, I jot something down and I never like go off of my script. I just go off of my,
But you know
I
what?
go off of my heart. And,
It's absolutely true, you do.
And I am very grateful, you know, to all of you. You guys have been receiving us for several years, and I'm in awe of how well behaved they are, our
Good.
babies. They're just doing amazing. That one's mine. And I do, you do have your council members here that have also been a voice for our kiddos. I'm just at a loss of everything right now. Mr. Councilmember Hamby.
Gil?
Yes, I call you Gil. You know, with the county, he's brought a lot of awareness. Mr. Hamby firsthand knows our children. He's helped them sing songs, composed with them. So I'm very grateful.
We're grateful to you. You've always come up here and presented well and brought awareness to your cause. And so we appreciate you very much. There is a proclamation. It's written for the April 2nd meeting, or?
No,
April 2nd?
actually, Autism Awareness Day worldwide is April 2nd, and
okay.
the whole month is just Autism Awareness
All
Month.
right.
Also, I want to make mention, today is a World Down Syndrome Day.
Okay.
So today, yes. So like I said, it's all of our babies that we advocate for. So
Right.
just like I said, there's several organizations out there that do support our children.
Yeah.
So those events are coming up. You know, I'm sure they're being posted by Autism Support, Best Step Forward. Not sure if Challengers might be having something. We'll do something small in Westmoreland.
Well, we have a proclamation
Thank
for you.
you.
If I could read it
That
for
would be
you. It's a
wonderful.
little long,
Thank
but
you.
we'll get through
You
it
can
quickly.
cut it.
And we'll maybe shorten it a little bit just to make it easier for you. It's a proclamation designated April 2023 as Autism Awareness Month and April 2nd, 2023 as World Autism Awareness Day in the city of Brawley. Whereas autism is a result of a neurological disorder that affects the normal functioning of the human brain and can affect anyone regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic background. Whereas symptoms and characteristics of autism may present themselves in a variety of combinations and can result in significant lifelong impairment and an individual's ability to learn, develop healthy interactive behaviors, and understand verbal as well as nonverbal communication. Whereas the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is a reality that affects millions of families every day, and more children are being diagnosed, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 44 children nationally, with 4 times greater prevalence among boys and girls, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And there are other items that are presented here within this proclamation. But I do want to tell you that, therefore, I, George Nava, Mayor of the City of Brawley, and on behalf of our governing body and the residents of Brawley, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Autism Awareness Month and April 2nd, 2023 as World Autism Awareness Day in the city of Brawley to raise public awareness, acceptance, and inclusion of those with autism and the myriad of issues surrounding the disorder, as well as to increase knowledge of the programs that have been and are being developed to support individuals with autism and their families. So it's a simple proclamation, but I hope it's meaningful, and it does bring awareness, and it helps bring awareness, much like you have over the several years that you've been coming here, and I think you're doing a great job. So
thank you, Mayor. And it's not as simple. I do not take the mayor's signature lightly. I want to let you know that.
Right?
Yes.
Scan that, and then you can use it for other things. So I appreciate it very much.
Can we take a picture?
Of course we can. Of course. Let's go, everybody.
Motivation. You have to use incentive.
It works for me too. Come on up. You guys. Come on up. There you go. Come on up, everybody. How do we do this? Not be shy.
Hurry, guys. Hurry. Come on.
Don't be shy. Come on.
Natalie, get in here. Where's Natalie? Come on, let's get. Come on, Noah, get in here. You're a brother and you help. Come on. Get in.
Peace, brother. Pizza pie.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
One more?
Hurry, guys.
All right. One more picture. Thank you.
So much effort work.
I'm trying to hear it.
I know.
It's getting a little warm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Time's changing. It was cold
I
this
know,
morning.
time is changing, brother. Yeah, and it rained. I mean, I didn't get anything done. It rained on. And then I had to rent from Casey Roman. Dude, I had to rent it because Elms didn't have it.
Yeah, I had to deal with them. I'm like, let's screw it up. I had to go do an inspection this morning.
Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate that opportunity. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
So move.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
One item, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
The public service has announced that another spring cleanup, April 29th. You see up there 8 to 12. The difference here, though, is they are requesting that we move back to the landfill.
Okay.
And so we want to make everybody aware of that. If there's any comments from council about that. The time before it was back to the airport as it was before, but due to the fuel costs and increased costs across the board, Republic is asking if we can move it out. There just works better for them logistically and more cost effective.
What's usually the turnout? Is there a big difference in turnout when we have it at the airport versus when they have it down there?
You know, I don't have those figures, so I'd have to follow back up on that.
It's just, I know that it's a lot more difficult for a lot of our residents to get out to the landfill versus, it kind of it's kind of like, I don't know, I don't see the point to it. If it's going to be at the landfill, then they can just go anytime and do that. So.
I can definitely try.
It does make it easier though on that day when they go to the landfill. They streamline the process.
Okay.
They streamline the process, so it makes it much easier. But
I can have those figures.
logistically though, they did have some issues at the airport initially. They kind of cleared that up, but I think they have greater turnout when they have it at the landfill. So that was. But yeah, thank you, and we can share that online. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'll also go out in our utility distribution mailing. So.
All right. So next item on the agenda is item 5, study sessions, review and provide comments on, or additional direction to staff regarding the current City of Brawley Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, noise, presented by Tyler Salcido, our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thomas Garcia, the assistant to the city manager, will be handling this presentation. He's done all the hard, heavy lifting on this, and it's greatly appreciated.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. So we are here this evening to take a look at our city's ordinance on noise. And just kind of take a review as to what else is out there, as to what other cities are doing and what other ordinances look like in comparison to ours. And so we'll go ahead and jump right into that. So what you're looking at is, I know you're all familiar with.
Looks a little noisy. Yeah.
This is the city's ordinance, and just small font, but so don't worry about reading. I know you've all in recent days have looked at our municipal code on noise and are familiar with it. But just as for some foundation and context, I put it up here. But in the reviewing it and looking at what other cities are doing, a couple of things do stand out. One is our ordinance is about a page, 1 1/4 page. In comparison, other codes are between 4 and 5 pages to as many as 19 pages. So certainly, we're at the smaller spectrum of ordinances and not as much detail and explanation in that. We're not alone in that. There's certainly other cities that have even less than what we do. But we did take a look. This is just a handful of some of the ones that we did look at. Trying to pick a couple that had similar levels of population as the city of Brawley, but also some that had downtown areas or areas that have entertainment, nightlife type atmospheres, which is one of the recent issues of why we're here today in our downtown area, and so trying to look at that as well. And so some of the things that stand out is most of these other ordinances that are a little more detailed than ours start out with a clear understanding with definitions. As you know, when you're drafting ordinance and stuff, clear understanding of the wording is critical. So it's clear to everybody. Everybody's on the same page and understanding. And in looking at these noise ordinance, they get very technical. A lot of terms like ambient noise, commercial purpose versus non-commercial purpose, and having the definitions that explain what these terms mean. And this was just a few that I had pulled out. Sound pressure level. How many people know what that is, referencing? Cumulative period, fixed noises. So there's a lot of definitions and stuff in these ordinances that I saw that clearly outline and detail, what's being discussed. So it's clear to everybody. One of the other features that stands out is most of these ordinances now have some sort of decibel charts outlining, what is acceptable noise level, what's not, and they vary, and some of them outline, decibel levels for either between daytime and nighttime, and they'll vary. Some of them get detailed into as far as different areas of the city, whether it's residential, commercial area, a downtown area. So there's, again, different levels of detail in different city ordinances to consider. One of the other, this was pretty common in most of these ordinances, what is characteristics and issues to consider. And this was, not only talking about when, formulating an ordinance, but as well as the enforcement of it for our code enforcement, for our law enforcement officers. Clearly, outlining the direction and the guidance to them on how, the intention of the ordinance and how it should be enforced and when action should be taken. And so some of these are the characteristics that it's recommended that are evaluated when looking at incidents, specific incidents, level of the sound, whether the nature of the sound is usual or unusual, whether the origin of the sound is natural or unnatural, the level and intensity of the background noise, if any, proximity of the sound to resident sleeping facilities, nature and zoning of the area within which the sound emanates, density of the inhabitation of the area within which the sound emanates, time of the day, night, sound occurs, the duration of the sound, whether the sound is recurrent, intermittent, or constant, whether the sound is produced by commercial or non-commercial activity, and whether the alleged violator has refused a previous request to stop producing the sound. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account, and it's clearly outlined in a lot of other ordinances, which ours clearly doesn't. And then a lot of them also have a process in the ordinance for permit or variances, when they want to have facilities or businesses or events that are going to create noise. And these are just some of the items that are taken into account with those processes. One of the ones, which is one of the few ones that actually, if anyone's familiar with Pasadena, like a lot of cities, they have Old Pasadena that's kind of a nightlife type, after hours type area, common for restaurants and bars in that area. And so they actually have a carve out specific to that area. It's just an example. Not many of the ordinances do, even though we looked at a lot of cities that have that type of area where they have those type of businesses and that type of activity at night hours, but not many of them had a specific section for that. So that's just basically what we kind of looked at and saw in gathering a lot of these ordinances. They're all pretty much like ours, available online. We looked at in detail. We can provide them to anyone who'd like to look at those. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Well, thank you for the information.
Tommy, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you recall the decibel level that they mentioned, the owner of Spot 805 mentioned that he had done a decibel reading?
Yeah, not off the top of my head, but I will say in these ordinances, there's very detailed, as again, the definition on decibel levels and and there's also section as to the equipment, the meters that are used to, it's not just a matter of walking out there with some sort of app on your phone and taking. There's also one that reference to average hourly decibel level. So it's not just one reading at one time, they're over the limit. It's actually they do it on an average for the hour. What was the average decibel level for the entire hour in making determinations, and that's set in a specific chart of how they set that. So it's really got to be specific and looked at. Those are great ideas and stuff, but again, you have to look at it specific to the city of Brawley, and although that's the issue that's at hand right now, but again, we want to be cautious and looking at this in its entirety for all the residents, those that are involved with the situation now, as far as those that could be later on and maybe before this council, and an ordinance that represents everybody in the city. As many, looking down the road and trying to anticipate and best structure that. So,
what is your recommendation? Based on your findings, what do you recommend we do?
I didn't have findings. I gathered the information to provide to this council, and this time I'm not.
Sir,
personal findings.
Sir, that wasn't staff's direction that we received to offer recommendations, just to bring back some examples.
It's just presenting the information, so that's up for discussion next, and let's just kind of follow the process here. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so comments from council at this time? Are there any?
Yeah, I know we had asked, like I said, thank you, Tommy. I'd imagine though for us to get the ordinances from the different cities and us to compare, not so much of how ours differs, but just simply because I think we're going to have to update our ordinance. It is pretty vague. It's very general, and I think you look at the other cities, although they are technical, I think there's a reason. I think simply because different zones, and I do imagine our ordinance being, decibel, time, zone use. And I think they're fairly similar, 45, 55, 65, depending on the use. And I think it has to incorporate a sound level meter. And like you said, has to meet ANSI standard. But I think more of a study session would be like I said, I looked up like I said, Banning, Visalia, Coachella, El Centro, and although they are technical, much more than ours, there are some similarities. I'd like for us we're probably gonna have to have another study session, but get these ordinances ourselves for each of us can read, the public can read. I think this, at first I was a bit disappointed when I saw the item and there was no backup. I thought, here we go, I'm gonna go in a circle, but I saw the presentation, I appreciate it. But I also like it to be available to the public so they can see, they can, provide their input. But I'd like for us next time to, grab those ordinances, even if it is a lot, or the top 5 or that you find similar, and allow us to go through it, make it public, agendize it, and then we can either pick and choose or we can kind of tailor it to our needs. But like I said, the template's out there. The template's out there, what kind of ordinance, even if it is, technical, like I said, there's a reason for it. And I think so there's none of this confusion on what, where, who, why. No, I think I'd like to see us get these ordinances placed before us, placed publicly, allow us to do our homework as well and the community. And then we can go from there, from really updating this ordinance similar to the ordinances I think we updated last meeting, right? How it just redlined and here it is. But I think it's going to incorporate decibels, times, zone use. I mean, as much as there's all these definitions in many of these ordinances, like the basic, I think it comes down to the noise level standards. And I think the charts in each of those kind of break it down. So I'd like to see us next time, like I said, all those you cited, or like I said, 5, and then we can go from there, from the council, and update the ordinance, because it's going to have to be updated.
Appreciate that. I would say this, though, with respect to the ordinance, whether it's changed or not, the key is going to be enforcement. That's going to be the challenge. I mean, enforcement is going to be key. And so that is going to be a challenge. I think it's a challenge for any city, not just Brawley, but it's going to be a challenge to who does it. Is it a code enforcement officer, which we don't have? Is it a police officer? Is it, those sorts of things? That's the other thing that we're going to have to consider. So it's not just, I don't think it's as simple as changing the ordinance, but it's also, more than anything, it's the enforcement. That's going to be the bigger issue. And quite honestly, how do we measure complaints, and how do we, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to it to consider. Not just, it's like anything, Brawley is a unique city, even within the valley. And so there are times where you hear, groups blaring music in different parts of the community and residential areas and other places. This happens to be a downtown area, and so where they do have restaurants and they do have bars and they have other amenities out there as well. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge for us. But I agree with Councilmember Revelar. We need something a little bit more specific. But we also need to consider how, in fact, it's going to be enforced, and that's probably the bigger issue. Yeah. Because we haven't. I mean, think about it. We do have it now, and how is it being applied? Yeah. And probably more than anything. When an item or a business comes before the Planning Commission, that's the time when it needs to be considered too. Because I think that this is, we're reactionary and not, doing it beforehand. So anyway, those are.
Mayor, if I can add, my comments as well. I think as mentioned, obviously if we address the ordinance, obviously this is where this is headed. I think from the last few discussions in our public comment sections, and I think we even had some dialogue back and forth. Inevitably, that's where it's heading to address this maybe one situation, but bearing in mind when we really dig in deep on this ordinance, it's citywide, right? So I think we're all acknowledging that. The other thing, just to comment, and thank you for the presentation again. I think there was what I took from that that presentation is it is a very wide, vague spectrum to consider as it is. So, sometimes I just say use caution on specificity. So, let's say we pick a number, we're going to do like what all cities do, and we're going to cut off 60 decibels. And the question comes down to, whether I didn't think about an hourly average, for example. So it may, by way of ordinance, ratify the very noise you want to go away. So hence, I think what's really important not to lose sight of I think an opportunity with 805 owners where they seem to me, at least a few meetings ago, amenable. I think they need to be engaged as well, just maybe as robustly as we are as a council. I think together we can address this one specific situation as maybe we look broader. My whole point is I don't know that an ordinance change is going to necessarily be the solution. And that's not me being negative. It's just use caution. When we see these numbers like, oh, that's the answer, 60 decibels. I have no clue. I don't know if it is. What if it isn't? So now you have an ordinance that basically says that noise will stay there, in perpetuity. Maybe there's other solutions we need to continue to pursue. I'm all for readdressing if we need to dive in deeper and look at that ordinance. And with that, I just, I caution the council that that's citywide for all use and all mixed use and all different ends of, and there's a lot to consider. We have agriculture, industrial, just as much, residential, commercial, downtown, mixed use. We got to look at everything. So anyways, those are just my comments on this study session.
Any other points?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but I did watch the comments of last meetings, and I wasn't here. Carol? Ma'am, ma'am, I'd like to publicly apologize. Yes, ma'am. I'd like to apologize to you if there was a misunderstanding. I did hear your comments online, and you felt insulted by my comments, and that was never my intention, so I do apologize to you for that. If you would have stuck around to listen to my comments at the end, the council comments, I did say that your concerns are my concerns. Every citizen, every person that lives in the city, including your comfort and your ability to enjoy life in our city and the quality of the life that's being offered here is important to me, just as it is for all the young workers at that Spot 805 and all the small business owners. So it's a lot to balance, and not that I wasn't taking your complaints lightly, but what I did ask was that we proceed with caution, that we take a little bit more time with this, that we start to see how all this proceeds. And I understand it's uncomfortable at the moment. And the comment about, retrofitting the building is just part. I asked that perhaps that was part of the solution. And I do want to obviously address this. And with that, again, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, if I offended you in any way. That was never my intention. Thank you, ma'am. I feel better now because it did stay with me. But with that, I think Councilmember Warren is 100% correct. We have to identify our zones and our areas of use, right? Mixed use, commercial, residential, and I don't know if, sir, if you're running an assisted or elderly living facility there, and we have to address that as well. Because I do think that if we create these zones for the elderly to live and rest and be comfortable in, we need to designate those areas, and then we can apply these ordinances, these sound limits to the specific areas, right? So being downtown, mixed use, obviously it's going to be very difficult to apply a sound ordinance that keeps it super quiet for you guys all the time. So
good points.
We are looking at all this, and all I was asking was for time and for us to proceed with caution, because we talked about a balance of things last time, right? One of my biggest concerns, and I was discussing this today, is fire, EMS services, police services, should the need arise. We're short-staffed right now quite a bit, and we're talking about how are we going to pay for these positions? How are we going to staff and meet the needs of our community? So we need businesses to be robust. We need them to make money. We need that sales tax. We need that revenue to come in order to provide all the services that are needed. If you need an ambulance, if you need police, if you need fire, we want to make sure that those services are provided to you as quickly as you need them. And that's what I think about. I think about the whole cycle, the whole ecosystem that we are providing here, that we're trying to maintain, and doing a very good job with in a very difficult situation. And so I know that sometimes I speak quickly, and maybe I should slow down and be careful with my comments. But I want you to know and understand that I consider everyone from the young bartender at Spot 805 to all the folks living in that facility, to including yourselves and the owner of those facilities. I totally understand all that. I own a small business, and I still go out there and work for other people, and I break my back every day. I've been working since I was 9 years old, by the way. And I tell you that I consider every single person that is involved in this process, including yourself, man. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Additional comments from council?
I do want to, just want to clear, I don't want my comments to be misconstrued as a simple, copy and paste of other cities' ordinances. No, I think it would, like I said, gathering a few and seeing what works. And we might say, hey, we like how they're measuring and banning. We don't like the enforcement. We like the enforcement aspect of, say, El Centro. And so it would be not a copy and paste, but kind of just like a discussion and work session for us to kind of see what works, like I said, and tailor it for the unique needs of Brawley. And said maybe that means not even just simply even like the decibel levels, but maybe that means staff going with that meter outside the area and seeing where's that sweet spot of what's noticeable, what's not. Because like you said, citywide, and like you said, a lot of these ordinances have these definitions. Yeah, the downtown levels would differ from, say, a school zone or a assisted living center. I think, like I said, my idea was not copy and paste, but like I said, looking at others and tailoring it to the needs of Brawley. And like I said, might get technical, but I think, like I said, there's a reason, because of this whole uniqueness of each city, each community, and each area. And so just want to make that clarification, but that is my comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamby, any comments?
I don't think I have anything real groundbreaking to add, but it just it always surprises me, blows my mind how even for something so small as a noise ordinance, we have to labor over it, and try to make a decision that's gonna be okay, or everyone is gonna be equally dissatisfied with it, for the next 50 years. And I just wonder how in the world did the founding fathers create the Constitution, and have all that forward thinking that for a document that could have been a document that would last, that would stand the test of time for centuries. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that we can be smart enough, wise enough to create something or piggyback off of an ordinance that someone else has that makes sense for our community, because we have a diverse community in that we've got these different areas, as Gil talked about, and I don't think a one-size-fits-all ordinance is going to work for all parts of town. I think we're going to have to.
Yeah, I agree, and those comments were shared by Mayor Pro Tem Castro, and ordinance is an ordinance. We can redo it, we can recraft it, we can say whatever it is, but quite frankly, the enforcement and the complaint process and how it's being applied, that's going to be, the more important issue, right? Because that's going to be ultimately how it's going to be addressed. And so anything can be put on paper. It's whether or not it's going to be enforced and how it's going to be applied and applied fairly. And there are different segments of the community, so downtown specific plan area, there's other areas that, there is consideration for obviously for greater noise in certain circumstances. But, the comment that was shared by Councilmember Castro with respect to just identifying the fact that, if there are areas that do have, whether it's assisted living or elderly, housing opportunities, if there's like a cutout for that type of environment, and maybe that's an easier way to apply it, and so, but that has to be discussed with council. I mean, I know it's frustrating because you're living that life out there every day, and it's been a few months, and you feel, I know your comments last time, and we don't go back and forth during public comment, but your comments were with respect to, your frustration level, and you felt like nothing was being done, and we tried to assure you that it was, and the conversations are taking place, the research is taking place, the information is being gathered and brought back. because when we make decisions, whether it's to establish a new park or a new ordinance or whatever it is, it's for the long term. It's for decades. It's not for something. It's not like private business where we can decide to be open on Sundays and then close the next weekend. It's not like that. So it just takes a lot of consideration. And quite frankly, there's greater thought amongst 5 people than just one person. So everybody here, I think, brought something a little bit different today, and it's helpful. And I know that's a long-winded way of saying it's a work in progress, but I still, and I know there was some discontent with the fact that I had mentioned, working with the 805 owners. There was some discontent in that statement and saying like, hey, let's work with them to see if we can address that at least in the meantime, and then move forward with something that's longer lasting. But quite honestly, that is probably the better solution right now, because we can talk about this time and time and time again, and feel frustrated. Even for us, it gets frustrating, right? I mean, it does. And so, but I think honestly, they seem to be agreeable to working with the residents and making sure that something's a little bit more tolerable for everybody. So I think that is the way to go initially, and then of course we're going to continue to discuss this, not just discuss it, but research it further and see how we can apply, whether it's a new ordinance, and how we can enforce it and apply it and make it fair for everybody. So, but it's like anything else. When you have a neighbor and you're having a disagreement, if you can talk to them, I'm a firm believer in that conversations and can resolve a lot of issues. May not be perfect, but at the very least, it'll get that conversation going. And they also, no business here wants to be the center of discussion, with the city council. I know that, so anyway, that's a conversation for them to have.
Mayor, if I may, again, my apologies if I'm not understanding what you have asked, but I need more clarification. That's exactly what you want brought back to you. Please.
What I would offer, what I'm hearing, but this is my summation of it, is just that it sounds like we do want to look and maybe go beyond our few pages of ordinance, meaning we're not counting pages, but maybe we need to add a little bit more to it and bring it up, maybe, let's say, to date. The only thing my comment, and I still stand by, sometimes maybe vagueness and ambiguity works to your favor, but I said it's on public record. Wherever we land with that, it sounded like we wanted to bring back some maybe more examples. So it doesn't have to be the next, let's do the proper due diligence, bring it back. Might be in a meeting or two from now, but
I just want to make sure we bring back what you asked.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
That's what it sounded like.
I would say perhaps 5. I think we're intelligent. We're responsible to
the
see
actual ordinances.
Yeah, I think we can tell the difference, of ordinances from ours. And so I think just 5, similar, that you find similar to our city, and that a little bit more in depth. And then I'm sure another study session for us to go over and make those public, put those on the agenda as well. That's backup, so anyone can access to, and then we can I think really have a lively discussion on how we can revise ours. So.
If I may, I feel that this is a subject that needs to be discussed, not at a city council meeting or more like a workshop, because I think there's so many nuances to this, right?
I think so as well. Yeah.
We mentioned, the areas, the zoning, residential, commercial. I don't know what 65 decibels sounds like.
Yeah, right.
I would like an actual reading of what we're currently getting there. Let's start there. And I think honestly, we do need to set up a workshop, a time to set aside a few hours so we can do this right. I think just reading a few ordinances and slapping a few things together doesn't do anyone any justice and doesn't do it right.
I think that's a good point.
Because like the mayor said, we have a very vague ordinance at the time currently, and we want to set something up that's going to be work for the next 50 years because the time is very valuable, and we want to make sure that something's set up for the long term and not just let's put a Band-Aid on it tonight. Let's be reactive. You may come.
Sure. Of course you can.
And so that's the idea that I would like to see something we can set up for the long term, as the mayor said. Think ahead 50 years and maybe address some of that. Obviously, something that could be tweaked over the years, but something that does make sense at the point, not just put a Band-Aid, a quick fix on something that we're facing now.
So my name's actually Elizabeth Machado. I'm the owner of Ciudad
Okay,
Plaza. I absolutely appreciate the direction that the council's making. I would ask if it's possible, when you put this planning group or work group together, that you include downtown businesses, not just ourselves, but maybe some of the businesses that actually make the noise. 'Cause
Sure.
they should
I
have
think that's a
voice
great idea.
at the
Yeah,
table
yeah.
also.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because people that live on, behind there
Sure.
might have a concern also.
And quite honestly, sorry to interrupt, but
No, that's
it
fine.
just, you're refreshing my memory because we get complaints. I get complaints about, people that are living near Abe Gonzalez Park or other areas. They can hear, so they're not exactly sure where it's coming from, but it's coming from somewhere emanating from downtown. You know what I mean? So it's like there are other people that are concerned.
I
It's not
can't
just,
speak for all the
yeah.
people that live at the Ciudad, but as the
Sure.
owner of the business, obviously I want downtown to be successful.
Sure.
I want people in the downtown.
You've invested millions of dollars
Exactly.
out there. Yeah.
So with that, though, it needs to make sense. It needs to be equitable. It needs to be fair to everyone. The people that live there have the right to be
Sense
able
with
to
an S.
sleep. They are not, in my opinion, being unreasonable. They're not looking for something set in stone. I agree. Sometimes vague is better. But I think there should be a reasonable expectation when you go to bed that they're not blowing out. By the way, it was 78 in our parking lot, is what the gentleman,
The
I
decibel
wasn't
reading?
here, his reading was 78. I
Okay.
remember, I listened.
Thank you for that.
So there's a big difference between 55 in front of his building at 78, 2 blocks away. So I think we just need to find something that works for everybody. We have cattle call. There are events that happen downtown. So obviously, everybody loves those events. We're
Sure.
not saying don't have
And there's like
businesses.
the exception to the rule now, you know what I mean? Yeah, understood.
Expect the noise from California.
Yeah,
Sure.
and we're happy to
Well, you're
have.
causing part of the noise
Yeah,
during
we're
cattle
happy to
calls,
have the
yeah,
noise. So,
right.
but anyway, just so to end it, just if we could be a part of that conversation and the dialogue that happens, we would really appreciate that.
I appreciate the comments
Yeah,
as
and that's
well.
why we refer to it as like a town hall meeting.
I like the
study
idea. I like the idea, and it's a good time for the public to come out and share their input. But I think that's probably the most appropriate method to do it. I think it's good for everybody. That way, it's not just one topic, one conversation. What we're addressing it in a broader sense, and maybe there's a greater understanding, and maybe a greater understanding of the sensitivity of some. And so. That also changes behavior too, so.
No, sorry, and I mentioned last time, this is just the beginning of it. We're going to see more growth, and it's going to happen all around town. So I think
Absolutely.
addressing it now and in this manner is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So thank you for
Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
that you guys are doing to bring awareness to this issue.
Mr. Johnny on Wheels, do you have a comment you'd like to make?
Can I stay right here?
You could stay right there, my friend.
Okay, here we go. Listening to what you're saying, you're talking about who's going to pay to monitor them. Listen, they can do it themselves. Let the owners do it. The guy that plays the music at that event has headphones on, and he's in charge of what's going on there. And he needs to learn what we're expecting of him.
Oh, you want me?
I think
Okay,
you made a
so do you-
mistake there, Mr. Gerbang.
You scared me.
Yeah, on the mic, it's on now.
Now it's on. Yeah.
3 minutes, 3 minutes has started.
Now it won't stop.
Start the timer.
Go ahead.
So did you hear what?
We heard you. We heard you loud and clear.
Do I have to say that?
No, you're good. We heard you loud and
What
clear.
I'm trying to say is that there's I go to the events. Eddie Flowers is my friend who plays music at Inferno, and I sit there and listen to him, and he spends an hour and a half sound checking to make sure everything is perfect. And all we got to do is figure out what that is and make it fit into our glove. I don't want those businesses to go.
Sure.
I watched the video of Mr. Luke Hamby walking down Main Street. I got tired of looking at that damn plywood cattle call sign there. The guy comes in, and what's he do? He tears up the places, and he's making music. He's making money. There's no problem with that.
Yep.
Understood.
But
I think
Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. It's not fair. We just want it to slow down, that's all.
appreciate the comments, Mr. Johnny on Wheels. Always appreciate you.
ADA compliant, that's coming up next,
There you
guys.
go. I know you've been.
So you better get your razor blades out, because we're going to be I'm serious. I
believe it.
I got knocked down last time. I came to this meeting, and that mayor sat there and told me that I didn't have to worry about it because we don't want to interfere with the new businesses.
Yeah.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
It's been a problem.
But we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
We're here together to make it work.
Well, we appreciate.
And I
your
want to
input.
thank Carol, and Carol and Tony and Liz to be here today for us and to let you know what we're looking for. We just want your help, that's all.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. John Young Wills, everybody. Big round of applause for this guy. Yeah.
I take donations, $50 bills.
There you go, see?
So,
Nothing smaller than 50 for him, please.
so Mayor, has the direction changed a bit?
It has.
Okay.
I think we do, as has been suggested, and I think it's in agreement with council, to have a community workshop to address this, and it ideally not here.
Would it be the full council or maybe two representatives to work through some
No,
things?
we can have
or
everybody on council.
Okay,
We can do
so
it at the
official public meeting.
We could do it at the
Okay.
kiosk.
Meeting.
We have a kiosk before it gets too warm, and we can make some noise, and, you know?
Okay,
Let's do it.
understood.
Thank you very much.
Understood, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you all. Yes, we are, for now. So the next item to be scheduled is the community workshop, and we'll work out the details and make sure everybody's aware. Thank you for your time. Next item on the agenda is regular business discussion, potential action to approve professional services agreement with Townsend Public Affairs, Inc. for state and federal lobbyist services to represent the interest of the city of Brawley. This agreement for a term of 2 years is for a not-to-exceed amount of $120,000 presented by Thomas Garcia, Assistant to the City Manager.
Thank you, Tyler. Mr. Attorney, nice to see you. You having fun yet?
You always-
Smiling, buddy.
That's right.
Might be a liability.
Smile. All right.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, your next item on the agenda here is the discussion and potential action to approve the professional services contract with Townsend Public Affairs.
FYI, the handicap door does not work.
We'll address it. We'll address it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, dude. I didn't need to. You did a great job. All that.
Yeah, so we're looking at lobbyist support to represent the city of Brawley in its interest. As you know, I don't have to tell this council about the significance of the things going on right now, statewide, countywide, nationwide, and ensuring that the city of Brawley is represented and the city of Brawley is at the table in all these discussions and things going on, as well as always searching for funding sources and obtaining the needs of the residents of this city. So with that, we know, we're a small crew here at the city of Brawley, and we definitely need that help as well as that expertise. So we did do the RFP, looked at a few different organizations, and out of those, Townsend Public Affairs definitely stood out and was selected. And so that's what you have for you today. We do have Sean McReynolds.
They have represented the city of Brawley in the past. I think it was like 2008, 2009, 2010. So they have represented Brawley in the past.
Yeah, they obtained a grant for us before. And,
Wish to hear a few words from them? Or?
Sure, why not? Let's hear from him.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, my friend.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening. And just want to say thank you to staff for their recommendation, the agenda item for you this evening. I'll keep my remarks very brief. You've got our proposal there in front of you as part of the packet. But I did just want to highlight a couple of things for you and talk a little bit about the way that we service our clients. So again, Sean McReynolds, Senior Client Manager with Townsend Public Affairs. 25 years ago, Christopher Townsend founded the firm to primarily provide services, both state and federal advocacy services, as well as grant writing for local public agencies. And so really, serving public agencies and specifically cities is really at the heart of what we do. Since then, we've secured over $2.6 billion for our clients. We've had over 100 client-sponsored bills we signed into law. We also maintain a top 5 status with regard to the amount of revenue that's reported out by the Secretary of State, and we're very proud of the fact that more California public agencies hire TPA to represent them in DC than any other firm. So when we say that we really are a full-service firm, that's what we're talking about. And so we were very excited to compete for your business, and we're very excited at the prospect that we considered, and we look forward to working with you and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. McReynolds. Any questions from the council on this topic?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you spoke.
I just wanted, based on our experiences that I've had since I've been on council, do you guys see a problem perhaps starting with a 1-year contract and then extending that if needed? I mean, I would feel more comfortable based on what we've experienced in the last couple of years. If we started with a 1-year contract and then if it all goes well this 1 year, then we can do 2 years and so forth. I mean,
That's an option. I can say though, in my experience though too, and this is just my own input, but when we went away from having public affairs agencies, we were on a downfall. I mean, we did that for years and years and years. So I'm not opposed to having a 2-year contract, but I understand the concern. But I can also say this is like when we haven't had representation from professionals because we just don't have the staff to augment that and catch the dollars that are out there. Like
Yeah,
it just,
Mayor, if I may, to that point, in respect to that, one of the unique things about Townsend Public Affairs is that they both do federal and state. And in the city manager's negotiation with that, we negotiated we're getting 2 years of federal representation for one cost for what we were looking at for state. So that's the other.
If I may address your concern on, in the contract that's been reviewed by our city attorney, there is a termination clause with just 30-day notice. So if things weren't going for either party like we thought, we do have the ability to cancel that.
so you can come back and review it in a year and see where we're at.
Why don't we do it with that? If we do approve it, why don't we do a 1-year review and we can determine then? I mean, that's a consideration.
I'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, my question is, so, can you maybe walk me through the process of how, I'm sorry. Anyways, not kidding. Read that.
Yeah, but he was next in line.
You're next in line? So what was it?
Did you see us both like going back and forth?
Go ahead, Don.
You know what? All I was going to comment on is just some of the past experience. I was on council when I think right toward the tail end when we were successful in securing a grant, fortifying our ability to have resource officers actually at the time. And the other thing that I notice in comparison, this definitely looked like the widest, I guess if you would say, scope of service. Certainly the federal component. I mean, that's, you might even look at that as a big force multiplier of what's being offered here in comparison to the other quotes. So there's a lot of value here. The other thing is the bandwidth of the actual organization. So, Sean, I certainly noticed that. My only question that I wanted is just if without, you can give us the short answer. I like the fact that we're part of the process. We get briefed. There's kind of an onboarding, look like a robust onboarding process. So I think a lot of our questions, even going into it, obviously we have to sign first, right? But I read that in there. Can you just touch on that for 1 minute and then I'm done? That's all I wanted to ask. The onboarding process, yeah.
You bet. I'd be happy to speak to that. So typically what we do is provide, like you mentioned, a robust onboarding process where we'll bring some of the members of our team that I'll be working with to make sure that the city is well served. We'll bring them into town and we'll come and sit down with your staff, with council members if that's your preference, and basically hear about what your priorities are, learn more about the city. We're going to kind of walk you through how we see things going on sort of a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year process, both at the state and the federal levels. Kind of give you a broad scope of kind of what we see, a snapshot of what we see coming down the pike, both at the legislative level and also at the funding level as well. And then we hit the ground running. I mean, we're ready to get to work in terms of coordinating trips to Sacramento, Washington, D.C., getting you in front of not only your delegation, but also committee chairs, policy staff, agencies, regulatory folks, to make sure that you are walking to the meetings with the right folks who are going to be able to deliver for you as the city of Brawley. So I can talk a lot about this. If you have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but that kind of just gives a sense of where we see kind of things getting off here, and we're really excited with that prospect.
He says, I can talk a lot about this, but I need to check first.
That sounded good. Yeah.
Yeah, my question, Tommy, was, can you walk me through the process of this? Like, was there a scoring sheet, or was it, I know you talked about federal and state, but what, differentiated them? Because I went through them, and, I guess the question's not about do we want representation, it's who. And so what differentiated them from the others? And I guess what was the process? Just you came to the conclusion that they stood above or beyond. Like, was there a ranking system, 1 through 4? Just trying to get a feel on how this came to be.
Well, it was the RFP that was put out, and then the review of the proposals that we got back, and then there was a specific interview set up with each individual organization that put in a proposal, hearing all those and meeting their staff and their team, and then a roundtable discussion, and then selecting who they thought was
there was
the one that stood out from the group. And it was definitely TPA. We had a larger staff as Councilmember Warden, the bandwidth of what they bring to the table. And you looked at their track record and the staff that they bring to the table. They had them all there, from their grant writers and the different areas of expertise who specialize in specialized areas. It's not 2 or 3 people that run the whole spectrum. They've got a team of specialized people that in different areas, whether it's public works and wastewater and water management, or if it's law enforcement. They've got people that they assign that specifically handle those areas that they're going to be able to bring to the team for us, and not just one person who's a jack of all trades but a master of none. So those were just some of the things that why they stood out.
And there was one extra step before the interviews. There was once the RFP was issued, there was a question and answer opportunity for any proposed people that wanted to propose on it to get clarification of what we were looking for, and any questions they might have to in the RFP. There was a standard set of questions that were presented for each one of the clients, and based on how they answered is where we were ranking them. Not necessarily a scoring system, Mr. Regular, but from my perspective, it's like 1 through 4, coming back after you interview them all and reviewing that. One major consideration from my perspective, for me, was the bang for the buck. Is we have limited funds, as you all are aware, and who can we leverage the limited number of funds into the best services for Brawley? That was a major consideration from my perspective when I was interviewing all of them.
Okay. And so this one was 120,000 for the 60,000 a year.
5,000 a month, sir.
5,000 a month, and the others, when comparing.
One was there was another one at 5, one at 3 or 3,500, and one at 2,500
For state only.
State only.
No
all
federal.
for the other three were state only.
Half the scope. Mm-hmm. And no onboarding.
And some good organizations. They had things to offer too, and very professional and stuff.
Yep.
But again,
And they do. They
TPA
just have a
definitely stood
really
out.
solid track record, and we've used them in the past.
So they're familiar with Brawley.
Yeah.
And we should have. That was a mission on our part. We should have listed what each of them proposed as far as fees. That was but it is in the proposal. But we should have put more clear that in the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, I do like the fact that also our county is one of the references, and we have a county. I noticed in the reference form, Rebecca Terrasas Baxter is noted there, and it does appear that with some of the lithium work, they have begun some work there. So,
all right. Any further discussion? Is there a motion to approve the item?
Is it for the 1 year, or what was the?
Bring it back to review in 1 year.
Bring it back to review in 1
So it's a 2-year, but to come back with a 1 year.
and there's a 30-day out.
Yeah, I think that's a better process than just going back to when we dealt with the last couple of years. You weren't on here, but we had some issues. Anyways,
Yeah, and then I guess
Plus, we like the updates. We kind of like to see where we're headed.
Of course.
Where money's being spent, how it's being spent.
Is there a motion to approve the item with the 1 year review?
So move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Look forward to the work that you're going to do, Townsend Public Affairs, and I'm actually very excited. I know that you do have a track record that's going to be successful for us. Very excited about it, and I hope that it more than pays for the investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Tommy, very much for the presentation. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion potential action to approve a letter of support for State Senate Bill 583 to create a Salton Sea Conservancy. This legislation proposed by State Senator Steve Padilla aims to expedite the construction of new habitat and dust suppression projects while centering the needs of local communities, presented by Thomas Garcia, Assistant to the City Manager. You've been up all night, brother. What's up?
Here all week. I'll leave it at that, at the mayor's description there, and just to add that, the letter of support and the fact sheet and the supporting material was there for your review and discussion.
Is there a motion to move forward with this?
I'm beyond. I have a lot more questions than answers about this. I know that, how does this differ from the Salton Sea Authority? Does this add more bureaucracy? I know there was a letter, and I did read it, but I think how many times we keep hearing about saving this? Politicians talk about saving the Salton Sea. This is going to add another layer of that bureaucracy. I guess I would hope that a representative from the office of Senator Padilla could come and explain it before I can be in favor of moving this forward or getting the support, just because.
Would you like to table it until a later date?
Yeah, I would like to table it. I'd motion to table it.
All right. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
There's a second. I'll motion to table. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Nay.
Nay. Okay, there we go. So motion carries the table for our next meeting, and we'll get back. Is there any real need to? What was the vote on that?
Wasn't
There
there
was three no's.
3 no's to table.
Excuse me. Was that a nay?
Gil and I voted to moved it to table it.
Yeah, I did. I voted with you.
Yeah.
So that's 3-2.
Oh, I thought you said nay.
Yeah.
It was confusing. We didn't know who voted what. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll
So it
table
was
the issue.
3-2, correct?
3-2.
Thank you.
And we'll table it till our next meeting, and if there is additional information they could provide, then we'll vote. But I would agree too. If they want something, ask for it.
How did this get on? Did they reach out to you, or who did they reach out?
Yeah, they reached out to the city manager.
Oh, they can come. They can come then.
They could have provided more information. All right, next item is discussion potential action to approve a lease renewal with Riverside County Office of Education for the city property located at 1455 Magnolia, Brawley, presented by Thomas Garcia, once again, Assistant to the City Manager. All right, there we go, brother. Come on.
Oh, wait. Ooh, you're
No
really
pressure,
on your
brother.
paycheck this
Go
time.
for it.
Well, I'm at 500 right now because
Yeah.
one went through, one didn't.
Yeah, right.
We'll see how
All-star.
many-
That's all-star. That's all-star.
That is true.
That's Hall of Fame.
So with that, as this council knows, has been in talks as the negotiations went on. This is our property there on the east side that's being leased by the Riverside Office of Education for the Migrant Head Start program. They've been leasing the property for 20 years, running that program there. And so with that and the direction of the city manager, the city attorney to renew that contract, it was originally the initial lease, and then there was 3 subsequent renewals that were just amendments to the original lease. So definitely they needed to be updated in the language in the contract brought up to date. And then with that, there was also an increase to $1,200 a month.
From what amount?
From $1.
$1 a year. Mm-hmm.
So the Riverside Office of Education was agreeable to that, and they're ready to execute the contract. And
Great.
move forward.
Which is still low, very low. However, they balked at that and said that, more than $1 was too much. So, interesting. All right. So, any questions or comments on this topic? Is there a motion to approve the item?
Is the recommendation from council or staff to approve it?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I just realized you changed our. So I'm gonna have to go online and work with this on these agendas now. So I was looking for the backup material, and he's like, "This is what you gotta do." So click. So I'll be
Using
going. I'll bring
technology.
my laptop here going forward. So.
Maybe if you press it with your finger, it'll jump to that.
Well, I tried it. I go, it's not working, Tyler. So.
All right.
Like I said in the email, if you use paper, I can't.
Yeah, sorry, that's the reason I was like holding. Like it took me a second to even answer. So.
All right, we'll move on to city council member reports. We'll start with council member Hamby.
Thank you, Mayor Nava. Not a lot to report. I got to drive out to Calipad and attend the State of the County address. A lot of hopeful words from Chairman Kelly, Ryan Kelly. I attended the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting today and delivered some news from the city and received some information from the rest of the commission there. I've had multiple phone calls from different residents throughout the city concerned about different things, ranging from ADA issues to Pat Williams Park having pit bulls running after joggers down there, and certainly as we move forward with some of the grant funding that we have to improve that park, I think there will be more attention put on the surroundings there, the homeless encampment, and the need for paved parking and that kind of stuff. I think is all going to come to the forefront as more residents use that park. It's an underused park, but it's a neat setting. It's unique. It's got a rolling green hill with trees, and it's a nice setting. So I think we'll probably be putting more attention on that park too. But just continuing the work that we do as council, interacting with citizens and trying to make it a better place. But thank you, each of you, my fellow council members, for the work that you do, and thank you to city staff for all the heavy lifting that you've been doing lately, and to our city employees as well.
Thank you very much for your comments. And with respect to dogs running around, I have seen people also. I've seen dogs running around. This morning, I saw a guy walking his dog unleashed, and the dog looked like a cross between like a pit bull and a werewolf. And it was like, put that thing on a leash, man. Like, it's like, goodness gracious, man. But people just seem to think that their dogs aren't going to bite anybody. Like, oh, it's so nice. Yeah, okay, until he bites somebody or attacks somebody.
Bringing that up is, as you've seen the issue, or we brought it up in the past, of the issue of the dog waste, especially around the where they have the mailboxes. Like, they go get the mail, and then the dogs do their business there, and then they just leave it. Anyways.
I got started on that. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reveler.
Yes, so, I think, last meeting there was a concern brought up about Reserve Park, and I did drive by, but I also drove by this week on Saturday and Sunday, and it was packed.
Yeah.
It was crazy packed. And I love seeing, it looks like seeing softball, I think, but I love seeing, I love seeing a packed field, and I think this goes back, that's people coming to our city, right, supporting our economy, just enjoying our community. And so I think similar to this noise ordinance, right, just finding these balances of just this balance. And so it was very interesting to see, and it kind of like right, a big circle back, but no, it was great. Like I said, I know maybe the decision might not have been, appealable to some, but it seemed like to many it was. And so really great to see a packed Brawley Park. And because Brawley, listen, I work in El Centro, and sometimes these headlines and people like, what's going on in Brawley, but you see something like that, it's like, this is what's going on. It's community building, people coming together, families, kids, activity, physical activity, and so really great to see that. And once again, like I said, going back to finding that balance. I know last meeting too, I brought up these parking ordinances, and perhaps it seems to be the modus operandi of this study session on parking for semis. I know I've been driving by certain areas of concerns. I've been taking photos, kind of seeing what's going on. I know there's signage. Maybe there needs to be some updating or clarification. So perhaps a study session on the parking ordinances pertaining to semis in our area, especially surrounding parks, and going back to parks. And so I'd like to see a study session on the semi-truck parking ordinance in the future. Also today, the county had a public hearing on a cannabis consumption lounge, which they have allowed within county lines. It wasn't a discussion on allowing the sale of cannabis, but rather allowing the cannabis to be consumed on site. And so I know other cities have had this discussion. You see cities like Calexico, El Centro, Imperial, all allow this sale. And I think it's time for us to have a community conversation about cannabis in our city. I think there's a lot to be learned from all sides. And I'd like to see perhaps a study session, once again, another study session pertaining to that.
What study session do you have in mind there with that?
He's been sober for like 20 years now, so let's keep him there.
California. No, but I think just as I said, as it pertains to finances, I think, and not only that, since other cities have addressed it, we can learn from them. We can learn from Calexico what perhaps they could have done better. El Centro, Imperial, the county. I think there's templates similar to the ordinances that we can apply to our city, but I think the discussion, I'd like to have a discussion this year just to see where we're at. It doesn't mean necessarily it will be allowed, right? It's at the majority of the board, but a good discussion. I think we're in 2023. We've seen other cities, other jurisdictions, not just surrounding us, but locally, allow it or not allow it. There's still other cities that don't, Calapat, but I'd like to see a study session and that discussion. Also, the fair just included, which is always a great time for our valley. I know Councilmember Wharton was there, protecting and serving, and considering the issues surrounding youth violence, it seemed to be relatively well behaved. And I was recently going through old Valley newspapers from the 30s to 70s, and the California governor at the time would either be invited, attend, or even conduct the opening ceremonies at the fair, called Governor's Day. Some even would spend days in our county seeing what we have to offer. It was also common for the fairgrounds to be used for rallies and speeches for candidates as well. And I say this because yesterday our current governor came to visit. Don't underestimate the power of an open letter. No, but and although I believe collectively we're all appreciative and thankful for his visit and bringing attention to the potential of Lithium Valley, the reality is he's now just visiting during his last and final term, and yet we've been long overdue for a visit, even a brief morning one. So I think that we can get caught in the awe of the governor blessing us with his presence. I know I was very thankful, but that doesn't erase that our valley has been overlooked and all the other items that deserve equitable attention, especially when we take into consideration the recent crises our area has faced, being one of the hardest impacted counties in the state from COVID, our current healthcare situation, the migrant crisis in Calexico, and some of the recent legislation that has impacted our law enforcement. And although we didn't inherit many of these issues we face in our valley, they are still equally deserving of his attention. From decades-long pollution at the New River that courses through our town, to the drugs and narcotics that pour through our border and pass through our city's border right there at 111 that without a doubt trickle into our community, to the fact that we are a binational border region dealing with immigration, and even though immigration just to be a bipartisan issue, there's still no action on the reform that is needed. And with that topic, I do feel that much of the time the conversation can veer into illegal immigration, and that goes into the wars on the wall and other politically charged topics. But I'm referring to legal immigration. I cross often. I don't have Sentry, and there are times where I'm waiting with dozens, if not hundreds of others for hours to enter into a country. I, as well as they, have every right to enter. And so you think about the impact that has on those that cross every day to obtain education and work in our various industries of our valley and our city. From the agricultural fields that surround Brawley, our packing sheds in our town, our processing plants, and so forth. And don't think it's just people working in the fields that are coming across, not just agriculture, it's those white-collar jobs in the public and private sector, especially when it comes to engineering. So think about how that impacts our local employers and workforce when dedicated employees have to wait hours in line to get to their jobs. So some of these issues that may be considered federal or out of his scope, but the governor can help bring us attention to these, much like he did with Lithium Valley. And I say that as a fan of our governor's career, from his time as mayor of San Francisco and his early stances on the legalization of cannabis, to same-sex marriage, even his book Citizenville. I was right there with him, but that all goes to the side when it comes to the needs of our city, our valley, and our people. And I hope the governor stays true to his promise of visiting the Imperial Valley again, and much like those governors that came before him, this time longer than a few hours. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and hello, everyone. Just a couple items I briefly mentioned last time, and I'll keep it really general and vague on purpose here, but we do have, again, a rather innovative idea that might be coming our way in and of a project that does have to do with our city's infrastructure. Still very early conceptual discussion. I know our city manager and maybe the next step here is more of our technical staff getting involved in the discussion, but I will certainly more to go. I'm just protecting the representative that reached out, and certainly is our role as council members sometimes just connecting, right, and getting the right folks in contact. So more to go on that. Outside of that is I think the fair and a couple other big events were referenced, a fantastic time, and I want to end it on this note. I did get to go on a short business trip, and it did involve our police chief, as well as the sheriff in Imperial County and our team and staff that support the issuance and the management of concealed weapons permitting. So there was a very well done, I think it was the 5th annual, and it seems to be growing with agencies and cities represented all throughout the state of California that attended, very informational. And it doesn't necessarily just cover that, there are other topics, but Chief appreciated that. It was a great time, good time to spend together with the team and staff and command as well. So that is all I have to report, Mr. Mayor. Till next time.
Till next time. Thank you very much, Councilmember Wharton. Mayor Pro Tem Castro.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was glad to hear what you reported there, Councilmember Revelar, about the park being in use. Many years ago, when we were approached to help bring the community together to build those facilities down there, I remember the use of that park and the little girls playing softball, having to share the porta potties with some of the grown men that were hanging out there drinking their tall cans in their 40s, right? And I remember that we remember thinking that improving the facilities at our parks would eventually lead to that. And even though I haven't been by there in a while and I haven't seen it myself, it just fills me with joy to hear that, honestly. That the work that's being put in by the community, it's giving back, paying back in such a great way. So, I had so much to report, but just all the things that were, sorry, that's my son. And my kids and my wife have a bypass on the silence button. So,
I just called you. What are you talking about?
Can I tell people what I call you when you answer me?
Right, yeah.
Or just leave that one alone? So, one thing I'd like to see out here going forward, some of the things they brought up, cannabis ordinance and whatnot. Obviously, that's something that I've been speaking about for many years, and obviously, getting with the times. We know that it's coming to the point where federally it will become legal, and we're going to have to face this. We still currently have the option to turn this to not allow it in our city, but it's going to come to that point, right? So I think we should be ahead and think long term and get ahead of that. With that comes the need for, obviously, what we discussed in the past, and the need to improve revenue for our city. Obviously, police, fire, and parks, and public works, and the fact that with inflation at what it is, we can't keep up, and obviously the wage increases that have come aren't keeping up with the cost of life and the increase of just living, right? And so a lot of our folks are just surviving. That includes me and includes many of us here, right? That our dollar isn't going where it used to, as far as it used to go. So I think that we are perhaps, obviously, if we want to put this on the ballot next year, that we need to get there now. We need to start moving forward with those study sessions. Is how are we going to do it? Are we okay with it? Putting something on the ballot, a sales tax increase, a cannabis sales tax, a trans TOT tax. What's it going to look like? What would each one of those look like? And we brought this up before in the past, but I think that we need to take this a little more seriously now and get ready for it and prepare for next year's the 2024 general election, and see what our people, what our community is, what they're willing to put up. Obviously, we have great need, right? We have great need, and we have many positions still open. And I know you guys are doing a great job managing. I know, Tyler, you're doing a great job managing the city. The department heads, Rachel and our chief, Chief Duran and Chief York are doing the best they can with very limited resources. And so I want to say that again, very extremely limited resources. And so we as a community need to do more to support our staff. And the only way that we can do it is, one, volunteering, so two ways, volunteering, and the other way is obviously paying our taxes. And Brawley is the only one that hasn't increased their sales tax, compared to all the other cities. So perhaps we're there, maybe we're not. Well, the community would decide, but I think that we should present that and do what we can to, support our personnel here. I mean, you're looking at fentanyl, you're looking at, even just the mailboxes. I mean, think of everything that it disrupts when they break into your mailbox and they take your mail. If it's a check in there, a credit card, a bill, whatever it is. So anyways, let me get off this soapbox. I know we're going for a long time, and I didn't write any notes down. So one thing that I did want to point out, and I've been wrestling with this, and I think I have to say it. It's part of being a leader, is that we have to take a stand on certain issues, and this doesn't even pertain to the city of Brawley. But when our colleagues, and I'm looking at this countywide, and one of our colleagues is currently getting attacked for his personal beliefs. And I'm referring to the mayor of Calexico, Raul Ureña. Him and I haven't seen eye to eye, I think, ever when it comes to politics. I've argued and shouted at him and been rude to him because we disagreed so much when it comes to politics and even some of the stunts that he's pulled. But his personal life, and I'll tell you this, my parents were far from being perfect, and I'm far from being perfect. One thing that my parents taught me was to accept people, to love people as they are. And I don't have to agree or I don't have to care for what he does in his personal life, to respect his personal choices. And I've seen the attacks from former elected officials and current elected officials attacking him on a personal level. And I just want to say, look, Mayor Ureña, we have disagreed many times, and politically we're not going to see eye to eye ever, I think, maybe on some issues. But I respect you and I respect your choices, and we'll leave it at that. And I hope that all folks in leadership positions follow suit and understand that part of leadership is setting an example for those in the community. And if we lead in that manner, others will follow. So perhaps if we lead with a little bit of love and with acceptance, doesn't mean that we have to go and do the same things or be the same way. But perhaps others in the community will follow suit. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I will wrap up comments here. I did attend the State of the County address in Calipatria, and it was a bumpy road over there. You know, it really was. And so I wanted to see where I could file a claim for new tires, but I think everybody had the same idea in mind. I think Chief York had said that he filed his claim. That's right? But no, I appreciate Supervisor Kelly's presentation, and there was a good attendance and brought forth some good information to everybody's benefit. I also, along with the city manager, Tyler Salcido, we met briefly with Assemblymember Eddie Garcia over Zoom with respect to the healthcare issues here in Imperial County and some of the legislation that is being proposed. And so he briefed us on that, provided us some good information, and made it a point to make sure that he reached out to us, and that I also made it a point to let people know that he's always been helpful in providing information and reaching out. And so I think it's very important to recognize. Sometimes I don't agree with him professionally, but he's always been very good at listening and providing good input and feedback. And so I certainly appreciate him very, very much. I did see him again at the Governor Newsom's visit, the press conference with respect to lithium energy and how that's very hopeful to see change the Imperial County. And there is obviously industry out there, and there is an opportunity for, thousands and thousands of people to be employed. And so I hope that leads to great things for Imperial County. And, I think there's still some reluctance in saying, like, it's all going to happen for sure. But, I mean, it's starting to show real signs of life. So I'm hopeful of that, and would love to see it happen. I think we're at that cusp. So I'm excited about it, and I appreciate the opportunity to see him there and see that our state's leader is at least taking part in Imperial County. But I would agree with Councilmember Revelar in that, we're often forgotten. I've mentioned it before. I think we have to be very careful, because oftentimes, and it's happened before many, 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 many times, that people come, they take our resources, and they leave us high and dry. And I hope that's just not the case this time around. So exciting stuff. There's a lot of activity and movement, and I hope that it leads to greater opportunities for cities, but in particular for Brawley. We're the largest city that can benefit from it. We have the housing supply. We have the ability to build. We have all these things that are, we're equipped for it. So I hope that leads to great things for the city of Brawley over the next 2 decades or so. So anyway, do want to thank you all very much for the work that you're doing. staff and everybody else.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot to point out one thing. I saw the pictures of Councilman Warren in his uniform. Hey, you look sharp. Looks tough, right?
He's a beautiful man.
I would want him protecting me
We
any
want
day
you,
of the week.
you want you, you're a beautiful
you look
man.
good in that. You are a beautiful man, yeah.
You're a beautiful man, brother. So, all right.
No, you got embarrassed.
Don't get embarrassed.
Like a pickle.
You look sharp. I'm just saying, you look really sharp in that uniform. Not everybody can rock it like that.
Not everybody can rock it like that, brother. All right. Well, those are my closing remarks. I know there's a few other things that I wanted to mention, but for the time being, we'll just move on to make sure we get through closed session. But we'll move on to city attorney report.
Oh, we'll just do that in closed session.
We'll do that in closed session. Everybody, thank you all very much. Have a good one. Take care. Be safe. Stay out of trouble. And